All right, here we're basically going to go over our educational eating program. Very simple, straightforward way to eat. You can eat like this for the most part for the rest of your life. So we're just going to walk you through it. You're going to first mark off what time you wake up. Let's say 5 a.m. We're going to draw a straight line straight across. What time do you go to sleep? Let's say 11 p.m. So then we're just going to mark down every meal that you have throughout the day and at what time, and then what is the meal. So let's say you're having breakfast at 9:30. Then we would list the foods that you're having for breakfast. Your next one is lunch at 1:30 p.m. And then you're having dinner at 7:30 p.m. And you're also going to list what those foods are for those different meals. So the first thing we're going to look at, before we even worry about the food choices, we're going to break down what the food choices should be. First thing we're going to look at is the metabolism and where your metabolism should be compared to where it is. So basically, when you go to sleep, your body is fasting. That's why it's called breakfast. You're breaking the fast. So that entire time you're sleeping, your metabolism is the slowest it is throughout the day. So when you wake up, you need to kickstart your metabolism and get your metabolism started for the day. So you need to eat as soon as possible when you wake up, first thing in the morning. We really need your metabolism stable. This dotted line is going to symbolize where your metabolism should be throughout the day in a steadily burning calories. So if you wake up first thing in the morning, where you are here, you're eating at 9:30, 1:30, and 7:30. So you wake up 5 a.m. If you're not eating anything, you're pretty much fasting when you're sleeping, and you're almost fasting now. You're starting to get ready for work now, or whatever you're doing, running around, getting to work. All these hours, so now that's 4.5 hours that you're awake that you didn't eat if you're waiting until 9:30 to eat breakfast. This is just an example, and we're going to show you how a lot of people would eat, and then what you should change it to get to where you want to be for your results and for weight loss and to boost your metabolism. So let's say you're eating at 9:30. By the time you eat, you're probably going to be starving. Let's say you were having some bread and eggs and some fruit and whatever, probably going to overeat. Then your metabolism, your body's going to pretty much crash because you're probably going to have too much carbs there because you waited too long. So you're going to be craving those carbs and need those carbs. And then your metabolism slows down a little bit till you get to 1:30, which probably going to be slightly overeating again. So now you're on this deep low here. You're low during the night when you're sleeping. Go even lower, then you're going to spike it a little too high, come down a little bit low, spike it a little too high again. Then you're having this big gap from lunch to dinner. So now it's going to dip real low by the time you get here, which is going to probably make you overeat, which is also your last meal of the day, probably going to have the biggest meal of the day. So a few problems here with this biggest meal. A lot of times this big gap and this up and down is going to cause you to be hungrier here. It's going to cause you to eat too much. It's going to cause you to choose the wrong foods because you're just hungry and craving them, too much carbs. So it's your biggest meal of the day, probably your worst meal of the day, and it's also your meal closest to when you're about to go to sleep, when your metabolism is going to be slow and you're not going to use that food for fuel or energy. So look at these triangles that are going above this line where your metabolism should be. So anytime it's going above that or you're eating too much at one time, your body can only process food for fuel so much at once, like right here, up to that line, whatever your metabolism is. Anything extra is just going to go into storage and not going to be used for fuel or for energy. So if you're doing that, say 3 times a day, 2 times in a small quantity, and then here, even in a bigger amount, right before you go to sleep, you're going to storage, and then super storage when your metabolism is going to be slow, and you're on this kind of roller coaster ride throughout the day, which is not helping you to speed up your metabolism and to get you where you need to be for your results. So what we need to do is, like we were saying, is your metabolism is the slowest when you're waking up or when you're sleeping. So when you wake up in the morning, you need to kickstart that metabolism right away. So we need to be here, bam, just up to that line. We're talking a small meal. Then every 2 to 3 hours that you're awake, somewhere around here, probably around there, and somewhere in between here, you need to repeat that small meal every 2 to 3 hours that you're awake. So your metabolism is just, you're constantly burning, constantly using that for food, for fuel, for energy to go towards your goals. And there's none of that roller coaster. You're just going to be on that steady, stable line. Think about a fireplace burning in your house in the morning. If you throw 15 books into the fire all at once, it's going to burn out in 2 to 3 hours, going to fizzle out. You take those same 15 books, same exact pages, same exact size of the books, and spread them out and throw 2 to 3 books into the fire every 2 to 3 hours. You're going to have a nice, small, steady flame. So that's how we want to think about your metabolism, which is right here. So that's think about throwing 2 to 3 books into that fire every 2 to 3 hours that you're awake, and you're going to be all set. What kind of foods we need? We're still not going to go into food choices. We're going to talk about what your meals need to be made up of. And we're talking about calories here, not grams. We need 50% of your calories, 50% to be coming from protein. That means there still is definitely some carbs we need and some fat we do need. But 50% minimum of your calories need to come from protein. So that means you need to have more protein in your day than carbs and fat combined. And that is calories. Don't forget, big difference. That is calories, not grams. So that means you need to have more protein than carbs and fat combined. So for instance, let's say something has carbs. Actually, let's use an egg. We're going to use the egg example. Perfect example. An egg. 2 eggs. 1 egg is going to have 70 calories. So calories of 2 eggs, just to make it simple math, calories are going to be 140. Carbs in an egg are going to be 0. Fat in 2 eggs is going to be 10 grams. Protein is going to be 12 grams. Because generally an egg is going to have 70 calories, 5 grams of fat, 6 grams of protein. So in 2 eggs, if that's what someone's having, 2 whole eggs, that's what someone's having. So this, you would think this falls into the criteria of 50% protein, right? This has no carbs, so it has more protein than fat and carbs combined. You would think right here, right? It's 12, 10 plus 0 is 10. So there's more protein than fat and carbs combined. The problem why that's not true and that's not the case, this is grams. 10 grams, that's 12 grams. We need your 50% of your calories to be calories, not grams. So let's talk about how we convert grams into calories. 1 gram of protein equals 4 calories. 1 gram of carbs also equals 4 calories. The problem is 1 gram of fat, and that's why they call it fat, equals 9 calories. So there is more than double the amount of calories in 1 gram of fat than there is in 1 gram of protein or carbs. So now take these 10 grams of fat and 12 grams of protein. Let's convert that into calories. 10 of fat times 9, that means 90 calories coming from fat. 12 times the 4 is only 48 calories coming from protein. So you can see there's almost double the amount of fat coming out of calories than there is protein, because there's 90 calories coming from fat, 48 calories come from protein. So that is not a protein source, that is a fat source. So let's look at if you take out the yolk, and that's a whole egg. So that's the example we're trying to make here. If you take out the yolk, you took out all that fat. Basically, there are 70 calories in 1 egg. 70 calories. 35 of those calories are coming from fat. That leaves, 45 of those are coming from fat. That leaves us with only 25 calories. So 1 egg white equals 25 calories. 1 egg white is 25 calories. So we could go from 2 eggs to 4 eggs, but making an egg white, your calories are going to go from 140 down to 100, because we said 1 egg white is only 25 calories. So 4 egg whites, 100 calories. Your carbs are going to stay at 0, obviously. Your fat's going to go from 10 grams down to 0 grams of fat. Your protein is going to go from 12, which you're probably not getting enough protein anyway, is going to go from 12, and it's actually going to double and go up to 24 just by taking out those yolks of the egg. So going from 2 eggs to 4 eggs, going from 140 calories to 100, 10 grams of fat to 0, 12 grams of protein to 24 grams of protein. And bam, now you have a protein source. So that's why you need to know the difference between grams and calories and how to read that on a label, because we need 50% or more of your calories coming from protein. So that means these small meals throughout the day, these 5 to 6 small meals, these small triangles here, we're going to erase that top part because we don't want to be above that line. So we should be below that line, so we're stable throughout the day and constantly burning, using those calories for freaking fuel. So those 5 to 6 small meals a day all need to be dominated by protein. If your carbs are super low for the day, you could probably get away with one meal per day that has more carbs than protein. Probably that would need to be somewhere in the first third of your day. Like if you're going to have one serving of plain oatmeal, pretty much, you would have that in your first or second meal of the day out of those 5 to 6 small meals a day. That could be one serving of plain oatmeal, which is 100 calories. And that would be totally plain, adding nothing to it, just water, 100 calories. That's still going to be 19 grams of carbs, and that should be your biggest carb meal of the day. You're going to get plenty of carbs in other sources. So we're just going to clear this out for now. So we would take those foods that you listed in those meals, and we're going to put them into one of 2 categories, or really one of 3 categories. So those meals you listed for those different times, we would take those and put them either on our yes list or our no list. We also have an F no list, which is stuff that we know we shouldn't be having. Cake, cookies, pizza, donuts, and all that shit. We know we shouldn't be having that stuff. But there's a yes list and the no list. So we would just take your foods from each of those meals and put them into one category. We're not even going to talk about the F no list because that's stuff you know. This no list here. This no doesn't mean forever. This means no for now, or as little as possible, because the more you're going to have this stuff that we're going to put in this no list. These are things you're not thinking about. These are things that aren't necessarily unhealthy. They're just not conducive to weight loss. So things like fruits, things like nuts. Like people get a protein shake, a protein powder at wherever, Vitamin Shop, GNC, 100 calories, 120 calories, low carb, high protein, low fat. Any protein powder is meant to be made with just water and by itself. You start adding in 100 calories of bananas, 100 calories of blueberries, you add in some peanut butter or whatever. Now you have a carb and a fat shake, not a protein shake. But you obviously can have protein shakes. There are differences between a protein shake and a meal replacement. Meal replacement will have a little bit of carbs and fat. It's more to be like a meal. Protein shake is just strictly protein, not really going to fill you up as much if it doesn't have any carbs or fat. But let's keep going down the line. Obviously, chicken we can have, just no skin. We can have fish. Most fish is good. Like shrimp is awesome, even better numbers than chicken. Turkey. The one we don't want to have is beef. It's just heavy, loaded in fat, loaded in calories, makes you sluggish, lethargic, heavy. We're not looking to put mass and size. In general, we want no on the dairy side. That means cheese, milk, all that crap. The only dairies that we are going to have is Greek yogurt. If you can go plain Greek yogurt, that's even better. If you have to go to get a flavored Greek yogurt, it would be the Oikos 000 Black Label. Needs to be that one if you're doing it. The only other dairy that you would have is cottage cheese. And that needs to be low fat, low carb, low sodium cottage cheese. They make single servings, awesome numbers in it. Some numbers of cottage cheese are even better than the numbers in the Greek yogurt. Even the flavored or even the plain, doesn't matter. Obviously on this side, we want veggies. The greener the better. The one that we don't want is corn. You've seen high fructose freaking corn syrup. It's just loaded in carbs, sugar, no nutritional value in the corn. So you want to stick with the veggies, the greener the better. Broccoli, spinach, kale, all that kind of stuff. The in-between ones for your veggies, you can have, but don't go overboard because they are starting to get high, are tomatoes and carrots. So that's kind of like that in-between color, but they're fine. It just is if you didn't go crazy on them, because those are the ones that are a little higher in the carbs. Greener the better. You are going to need to get some some carbs, right? We remember that on that last board, we want 50% coming from protein, but there was still carbs and fat. So we need to cover almost 50% of your calories coming from fat and carbs. That's plenty of space for carbs, and that's still pretty considered low carb there. If you're in there, if you're getting more than 50%, and 50% is a minimum. Eventually, you're probably going to go over than 50%. So it's going to take out some of those carbs and some of those fat, but there's still plenty of room for carbs in there, which you're going to get out of your Greek yogurt. You're going to get some carbs in your cottage cheese. You're going to get some carbs in your meal replacement, but not in your protein shake. You're going to get some in your veggies, plenty in your veggies. Over here on this side, we want eggs, but no yolks. These are just the basics, just to give you a quick foundation of how it should be. So there's no fruit, no nuts, no skin on there, no beef, dairy, corn, yolk. Over on this side is also most of those other carb type things like rice, pasta. Even the high protein rices and pastas or whatever they have are still loaded in carbs. Like brown rice, for instance. 1 cup of brown rice is 216 calories. If you remember, 1 egg white was 25 calories. That means 1 cup of brown rice is equal to 8.5 egg whites. That's freaking crazy. And you're usually not going to be eating that cup of brown rice by itself. You're going to have it with some steak and some whatever. Alcohol is in here. It's really on the no list, but people will generally go zero of all this other stuff before they go zero with their alcohol. So as a starter, we just don't want alcohol being a calorie problem. I don't give a shit if you're drinking all the time, as long as it's not a calorie problem. Really, you shouldn't be drinking all the time, but whatever, you get the point. Basically, if you're drinking, we want to cut your alcohol quantity in half and frequency in half. So if you're drinking, just to make it simple math, if you're drinking 2 days a week and having 4 drinks every time you drank, cut it down, cut the quantity in half, have 2 drinks each time, and cut the frequency in half. So drink 1 day a week, 2 drinks each time, instead of 2 days a week, 4 drinks each side. So cut your frequency in half, cut the quantity in half for starters. Once you start training, you start eating healthier, you start putting this stuff, eating this stuff 2 to 3 times every 2 to 3 hours for 5 to 6 meals a day. You start eliminating this shit. You're going to want to stop drinking alcohol. You're going to start working out. It's going to start slowing you down. You're going to start feeling like shit when you're drinking it because you're going to be so clean. You're not even going to want that crap anymore. So you're going to eventually probably cut that out completely, or just like a once in a while thing where it's not a calorie issue at all. So this is basically where you need to be. Obviously, there's other stuff you can put in the yes list and the no list. There's tons of other things mixed in there. This is just the foundation of what you should be having, what you should be staying away from. There are other things on both lists, which you can go in details, or if you have questions, obviously we can go into that. But this is where you should be. Having primarily the stuff on the yes list, eliminate as much as you can the no list, staying completely away the F no list. The more you can stay away from this no list, even though the stuff is healthy, obviously fruits are healthy, like almonds or whatever are healthy. But the more you can stay away from it, the faster and more rapid your weight loss results are going to be. And then once you get closer, or you want to reward yourself and you want to mix in a fruit once in a while, after you've already started getting some results, if a fruit is the worst, one fruit is the worst thing you had for a day, it's a pretty freaking good day. Like nuts too, like think of nuts. 100 calories of almonds is like one of those little 100 calorie packs of almonds. There's 100 calories in there, there's like 10 or 12 almonds in there, maybe 14 or something. That is equal, remember an egg white was 25 calories, that's equal, 100 calorie pack of almonds is equal to 4 egg whites. There's gonna be about 8 grams or 6 grams of protein in that with like 16 grams of fat, and 4 egg whites is gonna be 100 calories, same 100 calories, it's gonna be 24 grams of protein, 0 grams of fat. Like I always like to convert things into egg whites, you can get a good idea of how much you're actually eating. The good thing about this type of list, this stuff on this yes list, except for the stuff that's the higher carb, like the Greek yogurt or the cottage cheese, you can eat as much as you want of everything on this list, of this yes list. Like look at the egg whites. 8.5 egg whites was equal to 1 cup of brown rice. So if you're used to eating 1 cup of brown rice, most likely you're not going to eat 8.5 egg whites. So you could pretty much, don't have to measure food. You don't have to count your calories. You don't have to figure out how much you're eating or portion control or portion size. You could eat as much as you want of all this stuff. You're going to get full of eating too much of something before it gets to a point where it's a calorie problem. Meaning you're going to get full of eating chicken before you eat too much that it's just such high calorie, even grilled chicken. The only ones you want to not do that with it is the Greek yogurt, because they're the highest in carbs, the Greek yogurt, or like if you were having that plain oatmeal we were saying, which would have to be 1 serving of 100 calories of oatmeal. So you can eat as much as you want. I guarantee you've never heard of someone getting fat off of eating too much broccoli. You can't eat too much broccoli. You're going to get full of it. You're going to have too much before you eat too much to make it a calorie problem. So this is pretty much where you need to be. Stick with the yes list. Stay away from the no list. Stay clear from the F no list. Moderate your drinking. Replace those foods in. Eat every 2 to 3 hours you're awake. Small meals. 50% of your calories minimum coming from protein. And you're going to be all set. Obviously, and come in training into the gym 4 to 5 times a week, because that's all pieces of the puzzle.